everybody. Welcome in. Happy Friday. It's the NBA Front Office Show coming to you live. Our Friday show. You guys know what that is.
Front Office Friday! Up 1-0 in the finals edition.
I was waiting for that. Welcome in, everybody. I'm Trevor Lane, joined by Keith Smith. As always, Keith, one of these days, I am just going to record my screen so everybody can see the little dance that you do behind the scenes while our intro music is playing.
Yeah, I love the intro music, the lead up to the show. I like it. It gets me fired up, and it's fun. This is my favorite day of the week to do the show. I love Front Office Friday.
It's a good time. If I had to describe it, it is like somewhat similar to if you've seen Caddyshack, the little dance the gopher does. It's a little bit. It's like a play on that. But one of these days, I gotta record that. But
I never knew you were watching. Now I'm glad to know I have an audience.
Yeah, I can see you. You're down below my screen, so while the thing's playing, I can still see you there. So I could, like, when normally you're flipping me off and stuff like that. I see that too. Yeah. But I also see the little the dance there. We've got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, there's plenty of things going on. Oh no, age really showing with Caddyshack.
Oh man, no!
But it's an all-time classic. Like, you don't have to be any specific age to enjoy Caddyshack.
Yeah, that one's like, my dad loves that movie, and I love that movie. And I don't know. I don't think my kid's seen it, but I'm sure she'd love that movie. That's a great movie.
Yeah, it is an all-time sports classic movie. It has to be. I don't know if it's the best sports movie ever, but it's got to be in the top 10 at worst, maybe top 5.
Comedy, definitely. I think
for sure
the best. Right? Yeah, that's up there. People might argue maybe Happy Gilmore or The Waterboy. Those are classics too, but we have room for all of them. They're all fun.
There's some great sports movies out, some sports comedy movies out there. I've got it. Drew actually brings up, I want to mention this because I think this is a good idea. Said, do y'all think you could do some content explaining common CBA terms? Like, what is a hard cap, a wave and stretch, biannual exception, etc., would be good evergreen vids. Well, I love that word evergreen. That's always the difficult thing. It's all but impossible in this business, and something that we lament all the time, that finding evergreen content is all but impossible. If I was making a video on how to bake a cake, say, not that I would, because it would come out terrible, but if I was doing that, somebody could watch that 2 years from now and it would still be just as relevant as it is today. So it was sports, though. We know what we do today is dead tomorrow. That's just the nature of the news cycle. So I think that's a decent idea as far as evergreen content goes, and probably would be helpful for some people. Keith, I find myself doing this too, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way. I start flying into like salary cap terms and stuff like that, and a lot of times I wind up speaking from a perspective that I feel like I'm talking to an audience that already understands all of these things. And I think I have to stop and remind myself that not everybody does know all of that stuff. And that's part of our function and part of what our show does.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm very guilty of that. I'll just drop a term and just move right into whatever we're talking about. Or there's times when I'll say things like, oh, well, they can't do that because that'll hard cap them. And then we move on. And then that's where it kind of, it throws people off. So that's a great idea. I love that idea. That could be like a good like August series that we start recording and start up when things finally slow down for us. And then we have a little bit of time after free agency or whatever. But I love that idea. And then we could, I don't know, but find a place to store them as a collection on the channel. And if you're looking for salary cap terms, you can find it there. So I love that.
Yeah, I definitely think we need to do something like that. We can create a separate section on the channel and do that. That'd be really good. Jay Wick said, all I've been doing for the past 24 hours, it seems, is watching videos with Trevor in it.
Keith, I still have like 24 hours of videos worth to go. It feels
so.
Like.
This has been. I've been with Lakers Nation it'll be 9 years in August, and realistically, it's probably been 7 or 8, I think, since they started the podcast portion of it. Mm-hmm. And yesterday through today is probably top 5 busiest days I've ever had.
Wow.
I mean, it was. I had one day where I think I did I want to say it was 9 or 10 videos in a day where the Lakers had a ton of signings. It was July 1st and they signed everybody in a day. All of it
Was
came
that
out
the
in a day.
year like we all made the joke of like because they were signing all the dudes that were like 35 years old? Was it
I
was it
think, and it was
probably
just
I just
boom, boom, boom,
remember.
all in
Yeah.
a row. Yeah,
Yep.
and so that day was a long day. Yesterday, I think I started when the Dan Hurley news came out. It was 11:30 by the time I stopped, and it was one. I mean, you know how this goes sometimes. It was radio shows. It was all kinds of different
Yeah.
things bouncing around. We did a front office show. We did all that stuff. It was one of the longest days that I've had. And I didn't expect that going in. I thought it was going to be a pretty light day. So I appreciate you watching all those. But yes, there was a lot that I've been doing over the last say 36 hours or so. It's been a super busy time.
Yeah, I mean you I well, we talked about it yesterday. You were up so early yesterday and you guys were live, checking in right off the jump yesterday. So yeah. Looked so pale yesterday, like a ghost. He needed sleep.
I did.
Or
I
this
did.
little
I
soul patch
slept
back.
straight for a full 8 hours last night, which is extremely rare
Oh
for
man.
me. And I
Sometimes you
woke
need
up. My
that
the first thought in my brain was when I woke up was, "This is what this feels like." Like it had been so long since I had slept that
Yeah.
I always wake up tired. I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is crazy! This is crazy. I feel good. What's happening? What is this? What is this
That does,
life?"
I remember this was I want to say it was like maybe a full year into doing this full time where I wasn't going to a regular job anymore. And it was it had to have been a year in because I think as but at least some people know, I literally quit my full-time career of 20 years to do NBA stuff all along, right 3 weeks before Rudy Gobert like came down with COVID and then the whole NBA season shut down. So my timing was amazing with that. So it had to have been a year in because I know our daughter was already back at school. And I remember my one of the mornings, my wife came in and woke me up and I panicked because I was like, oh my God, I gotta get the kid to school. And it took her like 2 minutes to like get me to like chill and realize like I already took her. You slept straight through. Like, wait, like it's okay. I'm just telling you, like, I'm home now after taking her. I could tell how tired you were when you didn't even stir this morning. So yeah, every once in a while it hits you and it just wipes you out.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. It gets to you, and you just kind of need that break. But I'm feeling good now. Um, Props to Trevor
Oops.
for drinking like 10 energy drinks in one day. It was like one and a half, but it was more than enough. That's for sure.
Ryan says Keith waits another 3 weeks. He's getting paid to stay home. Yeah, tell me about it. Yep. Though that was I've never been more stressed out in my entire life. I mean, as was everyone right at that
Yeah,
time. But
that was
I
crazy.
was like, I don't know what did I do here? Like I literally left a very good career that I had for 20 years to cover basketball, and now who knows when we'll see basketball again. But we came out solid on the other side, so I'm
Yeah,
super
it,
excited
it
about
all
that.
worked out. It all
All right,
worked
we
out.
got stuff right.
Yeah, we got stuff. Let's get into.
Yeah,
Well, here I've got a question here, and then I'm going to start pulling some news topics for
sure.
us. Gerald said, besides Seattle and Las Vegas, what other city would you advocate to get an NBA team? I know Adam Silver had some comments yesterday. I was mid recording whatever number show I was on at that point yesterday, but I did not see the actual quote, but I saw people talking about it, that he talked about some international expansion, perhaps. What, I'm sure you've got more details on this. What are you thinking with this situation? And could we look at some cities maybe outside the US?
Yeah. So what Trevor's referring to was Adam Silver did his I call it like the state of the NBA address. Like
Mhm.
I feel like he does that a
State of the
few different
association.
points of the year. Yeah, and he does that at the game one of the finals. He always does that before, and the topic of expansion came up, and he did say directly, "Yes, I have said CBA, then meteorites deal, then expansion." He goes and he basically, very much paraphrasing, but it was like, we're close to done with the meteorites deal, then we'll start the process on expansion. Then he stopped short of saying we're definitely going to expand, and he gave all we're off to look into, is there enough talent, but we feel like there is enough talent. It's like almost as he raised an objection, he countered it himself. So
Right.
it's clear they're going to expand. Um, as to Gerald's question, yeah, I think Seattle and Vegas are very heavy favorites. I think Vancouver is a place I wouldn't mind seeing them get back into. There, it
Sure.
seems like West Coast Canadian team. Feels like we're only a matter of time before Mexico City gets a team. Eventually, that is going to happen, and then and Montreal could be interesting if they wanted to go with another team in Canada. That's a turning into a pretty big like basketball hotbed there. So Louisville is another one that's always clamoring for a team, and I think they'll be heavily involved if there is expansion. They've got some people with pretty deep pockets that would like a team there. So there's a lot of places I think they could go to.
Yeah. And I think that while Adam Silver is going to be very careful with his words, and he's not going to just outright say, "Oh yes, we're expanding," it's noteworthy that, as you said, as I'm reading through the quote here, he deflected his own objections as as he was saying them. It was like he was playing a tennis match with himself.
Right?
And so this was, it's happening. Like the expansion's coming. It's going to happen. It wouldn't shock me if at some point they're outside, but it's Vegas and Seattle first. Like
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if it was not Vegas and Seattle within the next few years that
Agreed.
become NBA teams.
Yeah, and to be very clear with this, because this I got this question a lot because people know I've written about expansion pretty extensively. I've talked about expansion a lot. One of the questions that I got was folks said along the lines of, well, when would it be next season? Absolutely not. No chance. 24, 25. There will not be new teams, even if they started tomorrow and said, all right, media deal's done today. Tomorrow we're starting the expansion process. Probably not even 25, 26, probably more like 26, 27 would be my guess, because they're going to want to, part of what they're going to want to do is they're going to really want to open up the bidding, even if they know here's Stu's checking in,
Studios
even if it
do.
is Seattle and Las Vegas, they're going to want Seattle and Las Vegas to pay the most possible money that they can to be
Mhm.
those teams. You only get these chances to do that once. The conservative estimate right now is between 4.5 and 5 billion per team, as that's like that buy-in to the league. So there's going to be a lot of money coming in and a lot of stuff. So yeah, I like this one. Once they introduce 4 new teams, I think there's a chance this could happen. I don't know if it'll be 4 at once. Again, we'll show our age because we were both kids when this happened. But when the Magic, Timberwolves, Heat, and the original version of the Hornets came in, they all
Mm.
came in at once as accepted into the league as expansion teams. But 2 teams started the first year, and then 2 teams started the next year because the league didn't want to water down too much with 4 expansion teams all at once. So I think there's a potential. I think what they're going to do is use this to see, well, we're going to get our 2. What other cities are really viable? What are their plans? Where are they going to
Mhm.
play? What is it going to look like? So I think there is a chance that we see something along those lines.
Right. And I think they would do that. They would stagger it again. It wouldn't be 4 teams all at once. They would probably
Correct.
stagger that. Here, Keith, let's let you pat yourself on the back a bit here from, Mike Pat. No pun intended there. Uh, Keith, you mentioned proposing the bubble. Did you really draft it up for the NBA? I mean, I'll let you tell the story, but to me, the answer is yes and no.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a very heavy yes and no. And somebody else asked, what did I do before doing basketball? I worked for Disney for 20 years, both at Walt Disney World here in Orlando, where I live, and in Southern California in Anaheim. I was out there for about a year and a half or so. For the bubble. So what happened was, and I know Trevor knows this very well,
Mhm.
when the NBA went down, it was like content dead. Like there was nothing to cover after maybe the first few days, because it was like initially it's like, all right, well, they're going to shut down for 2 weeks. Like we all thought everything was, and then they'll be back and they'll adjust the schedules and whatever. So you pulled forward some of those evergreen topics. You're able to discuss some, well, here's how maybe this break will help these teams and those kind of things. And then when it was like, we're indefinite, it was like, well, we're done. And what happened was we then started getting crazy ideas of like how sports could come back. And one of the things that came out was, well, maybe the NBA could play on a private island somewhere. Maybe the NBA could rent cruise ships and play games. And all I could think of was like, as someone who has been on a cruise and gone and shot baskets on a cruise ship, oh, look, a little wave hit. Oh, well, now the rim
The shooting
wobbled
percentages
and you
would go
missed,
crazy.
right? Yeah. And it's just a mess. So I I knew Disney with the Wide World of Sports complex was sitting completely wide open. They obviously had the hotel space wide open to house the players. And I went to my editor. I was at Yahoo Sports at the time, who thankfully knows the Disney property quite well himself. And I said, "Hey, can I write this?" And at that time, he was like, "Yeah, go ahead. You have something you want to write about." So I put together a thought of like, "Hey, don't laugh," because everybody was really pushing the Vegas idea. And I was like, how are you going to
That's
shut
right.
down a city? Then if you've been to Las Vegas, you can't close roads and all that stuff because you're just in the middle of a real like operating city. Where at Disney, I was like, they can shut down whatever roads they need to control access. For people who haven't been to Walt Disney World, it's like twice the size of Manhattan. It's over 40 square miles. The property is massive. I live on one end of it. To get to the other end takes about 25 minutes in the car driving. So it's huge, and they all private property. They can control everything. So that's why I put all that stuff together and said, let's go and kind of put this out there. And it took off. Part of it was I think people were just so starved for like anything that they could latch on to for sports. And by the end of that first afternoon that had been out there, we got a message back from the NBA. They emailed and said, "Thank you for a thoughtful and thorough idea." And then that was the extent of it. Now, a lot of things came out. Adam Silver's great relationship with Bob Iger in Disney through ESPN, ABC stuff. Bob Iger, a lot of times they various points they wanted him to buy the Clippers when the Donald Sterling stuff happened before Steve Ballmer stepped in. They've mentioned him as a potential owner of the Phoenix Suns at various points in time.
Mm-hmm.
So they went through all that stuff. So it was really interesting. Yeah, I got paid nothing from the league for it, but it was huge for me. It put me on the map with a lot of people who didn't know, and I was very, very thankful for that. And it was a really cool time, and the only time in my life those two portions of my work work lives would ever be married together like that. That part of it was really cool too.
Well, and what was amazing with it was that you were uniquely situated as somebody who not only intimately knows the Disney property and knows the ins and outs of it and knows where everything is and how everything could run, while also knowing the NBA piece.
Yeah.
So you were able to put both of
Yep.
those, like those are your two areas of expertise, and they happened to come together. And I don't know if anybody else would have been able to make that connection or was better suited to make that connection given the experience that you have in both areas. So it was really cool the way that all came together. And then ultimately the NBA, because I do remember it was oh, they're going to do it in Vegas. This is how they're going to make it work and everything. And then suddenly this Disney idea took off, and next thing you know, that's what they ran with. So obviously, you presented a persuasive argument there, and the NBA took it and ran with it.
Hey, I mean, if that helped us get a little bit of basketball back, I am beyond thrilled. I was just happy. I'll be honest, I didn't really like the way the bubble ended very much, but that's okay. It was all right. It made you happy, so I'll live with that. So that's fine. And I want to say it was on the back of the bubble that we had kind of said, hey, we should maybe relaunch the
Mm-hmm.
podcast,
That's right.
version of this. And then it was a little after that we relaunched or not relaunched, but launched the
Or
YouTube
launched.
version of the show too. So,
That's right.
which was a lot of fun. So yeah, we're coming up on, what did we figure out? We've just figured it out the other day. We're coming up on like 3 years. Our first
We are
YouTube video was Kemba Walker getting traded for Al Horford at the end of June of that year. So
big
yeah,
times.
yeah,
Big time.
it was
That
fun.
was
So,
fun.
yeah. Yep. No
All right,
doubt.
let's get into, there's all kinds of stuff going on around the coaching world, everything else. Eric said if the Celtics win the chip, I'm happy for Keith, signed a Lakers fan. That's where I'm ultimately living too, is that I will be happy for Keith. I will be sad for the NBA, but I will be happy for Keith.
I
um,
appreciate that. Yeah, it's as I've been saying all day today, there's one game, even a blowout means they're up 1-0. That's all it means. It,
right.
it doesn't mean anything now. It's still a long way to go.
Yes, indeed. Long way to go in the finals. Let's get into, so there's been a lot going on with the coaching. Caleb said first video was Kemba. Yep, that's right.
Yep.
Thank you for
Yeah,
being there
not
from the
the
start.
first show we did of front
We
office
did
show, but our
audio
first
versions.
YouTube video. Yeah. Yeah. We
Right.
had audio versions for a while first.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the coaching situation right now. Obviously, there's a lot of buzz about Dan Hurley. He's could be meeting right now with the Lakers for all we know. I don't know. Maybe there's some kid standing outside the hotel with the phone. Remember that? That was
Be
a thing.
amazing.
But he's supposed to be meeting with the Lakers right now. We'll see what ultimately happens here. Sounds like they're going to pay him a lot of money. They're going to offer him a lot of money. And according to Adrian Wojnarowski, they've already figured out the details of what the contract would look like, the length of the contract, all that. To me, that suggests they're pretty far along in this. Dan Hurley just has to decide, is this something that he wants to do, or does he want to try to go for a three-peat with UConn? I had a great interview this morning with John Fanta over on Lakers Nation. If you guys have not checked it out, check it out. As I was talking with him, I couldn't believe all of the inside stuff that he was telling me, all of his sources were letting him know about things. I was really impressed by all the stuff that he had there from behind the scenes. So if you really want to get the details of what's going down with this whole situation, how we got to this point, what happened to JJ Redick in all of this, he's got a lot of insight on that over on Lakers Nation. But it sounds like we're going to find out this weekend. We're going to get a decision. John told me this morning that Monday is UConn's next practice, and that Dan Hurley will not want to go into that practice not having a decision done. He will want to, one way or another, he's going to want to be able to tell his team what is going on. So the decision, it could come today, it could be tomorrow, it could be Sunday, but it will not go past this weekend.
And there was reporting that came out from several different folks, both college basketball folks and NBA folks, that he talked to the team already and told them, yes, this is real. Like, did not want his players caught. Wondering or thinking, like, is this a real thing? Is this happening? Very much came to them and said, yep, this is a real thing. More to come. Let's get to work. And so this is, I would say it's there. We're probably down to the last handful of like T's to cross and I's to dot before this is finalized, or maybe now it is really down to him sitting down with his family and saying, do we really want to move cross country and do this, or where are we at with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's going to be a big part of this, his family and everything. And that's something that a lot of people don't talk about, when we look at players and we look at NBA personnel and them moving and everything. They have families that have to either move with them or they spend time apart. And that's a difficult part of all this, but this is going to be a family decision. He's going to have to figure out, what does his family want? What's best for him? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of money on the line here. He would get, Keith, you look at what Mike Budenholzer got. It feels like this summer we've hit a point where now like 10 million has become the norm for a coach to get per season. It wouldn't shock me if we wind up in the 15 million range, maybe more. I don't know. I mean, it seems like the Lakers are going to come with a really big offer here.
Yeah, every time Woj talks about it, he just keeps saying massive. And I think that's massive, both in terms of, I would guess, years and dollars. I think when college coaches make the jump, the first thing I think they look for is, let's get guaranteed years in here. Like, I don't want to do this for a 3-year deal where maybe in the 4th year I'm gone. That used to be the old standard, was a 4-year deal, but it was really 3 years in the team option. Then that kind of creeped into 4 years in the team option. Now we've seen some go a little bit longer. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is more like a 6-year situation. And then Dan Hurley is, and I think you're right. I 15 maybe, like, we'll see, but I think it probably more than 10 feels right, because part of what you have to do is pay him to jump. To leave college, and it's easy for us, right? And we're both self-admitted NBA snobs to be like, of course you would want to coach in the NBA, of course you would want to coach the Lakers, but he's built a powerhouse. Like, he's won 2 titles in a row. He's got everything he could ever want, and UConn pays their coaches a lot of money, and he could have probably used this to go back in and say, hey, I'm leaving, or let's redo my contract here at UConn and get me more money. So I'm guessing the Lakers are going to pay up to get him. But we talked about it yesterday. I applaud the Lakers for going a different direction in the thought process around this whole idea of we want to build a sustainable program versus just the idea of just another coach coming in, because I think that program idea, that is such a unique way that we're starting to have to think about it. If the Lakers, when they get back into title contention, it could be as soon as this coming year, they're going to be very, very expensive. And if
Mhm.
to sustain that, you're going to have to stay expensive. And then to continue to be good, you have one of two paths. It's either draft and develop really well or hit on veteran minimum signings. As we saw with the Suns, they made 1 million veteran minimum signings last year. I liked most of them, but only about 2 or 3 of them really hit. So you have to nail those, and those are hard to nail. But if you can draft and develop guys, especially with the new second round pick contract where you're going to
Yeah.
get them for 3 years at minimum money, man, you're in a good spot. And if I hope this happens, because just from a basketball exercise, I'm super excited to see the idea of building a program in the NBA, because that's not how we think about it in
No.
the NBA at all. We think of the NBA as like you just go chase and you go and you get new guys. And I think that's a really cool like experiment almost that we'll get to watch live out live. So I for that reason and that reason only, I hope this happens. But I also think he's a really good coach, and the Lakers would be getting a really, really good coach. Has to learn, make some adjustments, sure,
Sure.
obviously. But I'm super enthused about how this could go.
Oh, as John told me this morning, he said, well, not only because of his offense, Hurley's offense, and the way he, schemes the X's and O's, like that will make it much watch TV, but also because of the way he is on the sidelines, it's
Yeah,
going to be much watch
yeah.
TV every single night.
Well, I'm pretty sure Tony Brothers has already got his first ejection planned out for
That's
Dan
right.
Hurley, because the NBA refs are going to be like, hit the showers, college boy.
Yep.
We're not putting up with the jumping up and down and stomping your feet and banging your fists on the scorer's table and all the other things he does. He'll get his a little bit, but that part he'll adjust to pretty quickly,
I'm sure.
I think.
I'm sure. Tony said, I've been subscribed to Lakers Nation ever since the Serena Winters days before Trevor. See, a lot of people don't remember those. A lot of people think I just started it. Not sure if she created the channel. Honestly, I don't know who initially set up the channel. It was before my time. But Serena did a lot of the early stuff on there as a host, but she was more of a kind of a, and she still does it now. She does sideline stuff for the Cavs. She's phenomenal. But she's more that traditional sideline reporter type. And obviously that's not really the way that I approach things. So it's a very different style now, but I do appreciate the kind words there. And I was, fortunate to be able to kind of take that and run with it and grow and get it to where we're at right now, which is amazing.
Yeah, I take all of the opposing fandoms out of it. The reason somebody asked before, like, well, how did we, I think they asked, here it is. Roberto asked, how did you guys meet?
Yeah.
And we met because you asked me the like a year out from LeBron coming in. I think we had met in Las Vegas at Summer League at a big dinner thing where a bunch of people were there before either one of us really worked together.
That's right. Yep.
And then you were like, when the whole, because it was like a year of LeBron might go to the Lakers stuff.
It was you, me. I remember. I think I was sitting across from you, and Kevin O'Connor was sitting there as well.
There,
We had a bunch of the Lakers Nation crew was there. Yeah, that's right. That was a long time
Jared
ago.
Weiss was there because it was like it was funny because it was like all the Celtics guys were on one side of the table, and then it was all the Lakers guys. But we had a great night. We had a blast.
We did.
Good time. That's what happens when the elites meet, right? We just sit there and talk about how wonderful we all are. So yeah, he. But you asked me that year, like, hey, can you come on the? I think it was the podcast version.
It was the podcast. It was it was not video yet. It was just the podcast. Yeah. And I want to say you were on one of the first 10 episodes of the show. I don't remember what number, but I mean, it was one of the first ones. You also were back when I have completely lost track. I have no idea how many episodes we're at this point. It's tons and tons and tons, right? We're well over 1,000 episodes, but you were actually on the 100th episode of the Lakers Nation podcast.
Oh, that's cool. That's kind of fun. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So we did a lot of different breakdowns of how the Lakers could get to the cap space of LeBron. We spent a lot of time talking about waving and stretching Luol Deng. Like that was like a major, or working around his wave and stretched money, I
Oh
think it
man.
was. But yeah, that was a long time we talked about. But yeah, we had a we had a that was how it came together, and then we were just they connected, and I kind of became like, hey, we have a cap question for Lakers Nation. Can you come on and do a quick thing with it? And everybody knows I don't do quick things, so that turned into me probably talking way too long. And then it was fully you that was like, hey, so front office show, what's going on with that? And I was like, it's kind of fizzled out because the person I was doing the show with left, and then a bunch of boring details of why we weren't doing it anymore. And you're like, could we relaunch it? And I was like, yeah, I mean, it's like I have all the show rights and everything. Like, let's go. And that's how we got here.
Yep. And now here we are, years later, still doing the show.
Yep, that's it.
There it
Having
is.
fun.
There it is. That's right. Craig says we'll have to take 12 to 13 million for him to make the jump. No, I'll do it for less.
I assumed he was talking about Dan Hurley, but sure.
Yeah, that's probably what he's talking about. Sure. Yeah, Craig, I'm sure is talking about Dan Hurley, and yeah, I think it's going to be. It wouldn't shock me if it's even more than that. Like, wouldn't shock me. I think that's probably, if you told me to bet how much will it be, 12 to 13 million is probably what I would land on. But I wonder if it could push even higher. We'll see.
Good, yeah, that's like a pretty solid like over under number, right? Is like 12 to 13,
yeah,
or something like that. But yeah, agreed.
Absolutely. Okay. Let's go. Oh, Keith wrote up the plan, and then the Lakers won the championship that year. Not ideal.
Not
there.
Exactly, but sure. Yeah.
For you. But
it was funny. I took a mountain of crap from Celtics fans after. Like, I was really excited that you helped get basketball back, but then like it all went to crap when the Celtics lost to the Heat. And then the Heat couldn't finish it off and lost to the Lakers. So yeah, it was interesting, but yeah, it was like it was fun.
As though you could see the future there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I wish. If I could, we'd be doing front office show from a big studio, drinking out of gold goblets. If I could see the future, I'd be winning Powerball. Yeah, right.
That sounds good.
Let's do that. Send in a few more super chats, everybody.
There we go. Just hey, all it takes is what we get one. I don't know if it's possible. $1 million super chat, and we're building the studio. There you go.
Absolutely, without a doubt.
Just one, just one. So if anybody, Elon, if you happen to be watching, fire it off.
Pick somewhere right in the middle of Boston and LA, somewhere in like Iowa, and we'll just post up there for
we're Field of Dreamsing it now.
Yeah, there it is. Give Iowa a try.
All right, here we go. Do we think that Jeannie learned her lesson to stop being cheap with coaches? Yeah, that's actually part of the conversation here. Like how things fell apart with Ty Lue years ago. I wonder how much that is, at the very least, in the back of the Lakers' minds, if they're thinking, hey, we don't want that to happen again. Like, I think, Keith, if it falls apart right now and they go back to JJ Redick, that's a tough thing to do at this point, because a lot of people are excited about Dan Hurley. And I think that would be unfortunate for JJ to be ultimately in that situation where suddenly it's, oh, okay, it's JJ, right? When people were excited about Dan Hurley. So I think the Lakers need to do everything they can to get this done. And I do wonder if that negative experience, the way they've been perceived since fumbling on the 1 yard line with Ty Lue, if that is going to be a factor here in how they proceed with this situation.
Yeah, I think so. I think too, the as you mentioned with like Budenholzer and others, like the market now dictates that you have to pay coaches. Like otherwise, you are going to get stuck with a lesser choice, and you're not going to be happy with it. No one's going to be happy with it. It's just probably not going to go well. So yeah, I think but my guess is they'll lean in here and do what it takes.
Yeah. Eric asks, how many super chats for Keith and Trevor to do a play-by-play of the finals?
Yeah, I would love to.
I just play-by-play for Celtics games.
No, because I cover it very differently. I'm very active on social media, and I take a million notes. So it's not. I would not probably be very good at that. I mean, insert that I'm not very good at this anyway. But I am. I don't know. Like I would be looking down a lot. Looking away from the screen, like I'd be heavily invested in other things. So yeah, that probably would not be a good experience for anybody.
We tried it. We did a few non-Celtics, non-Lakers games on playback for a little bit, and it wasn't really like we do every game over for Lakers Nation, and it's a lot of fun. But and I've seen, and there have been other media members that I've seen who do this. I mean, you like to watch a game with, I don't know if you still do it on a pad of paper, but you take your notes throughout the whole thing and you do it that way. And so that's tough to do a play-by-play while you're doing that.
Yeah, I don't. Thankfully, I've evolved enough now where I just type notes in. But
Yeah.
yeah, if it's a game I'm gonna be invested in breaking down later, I take a million notes during the game. I have like a shorthand version that I do. People have seen it in person are like, "This is madness! Like, what is this? This is like the thoughts of a crazy person."
It's like a
But
doctor.
yeah, a little bit. Yeah, but it works for me. So that's how I do it. So yeah, I just yeah, it wouldn't be a good experience for anybody else. And you guys do a great. You guys have a lot of fun with it. I
We do.
during the playoffs because I would finish the East Coast game, and then when the Lakers games came on, like I would pop in and watch you guys, have the game on my TV and mute it and watch you guys and have fun
I
watching.
appreciate
You
that.
and Sean, right? Like and
Yeah.
you guys did a great job with that.
We
So
yeah, we would have a blast with it.
and
That
it's
was a good
hard too
time.
because you're like you're mixing in questions versus
Yes.
doing the kind of like keeping
Very
people up
interactive.
with it. Yeah, I don't yeah I'm also clearly not very good in short form format.
It is one of those things where you have to be kind of like quick back and forth
Yeah,
and doing that type of thing. United, we stand, but I've appreciated play-by-play announcers much more when I see the rhythm that they have
yeah,
with the play-by-play announcer and the color announcer and how they go back and forth and everything, and their how concise they are with their statements. I'm like, see, well, his true shooting percentage is this, and blah 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 blah, and then the play-by-play guy would be ready to kill me by the end of it.
and
United,
you're
we
already
stand.
on like the 3 plays past that.
Exactly.
I will say before we get to this question, I know he's not everybody's cup of tea. I know not everybody loves Bill Simmons, and I don't listen to everything he does anymore like
Yeah.
I used to either. But he had a really good podcast. I think this was last Sunday. It was him, Ryan Russillo. They do it together every Sunday. But then they brought in Brian Curtis. And the two things they really got into that I thought was really interesting was studio shows and the 3-person play-by-play booth. And Simmons has called some games, and he talked about like it's really hard because you're like, I have this great point about that play. And then you're like in your ear, they're like, hurry up, dude. We're already the 2 other plays have happened. Like you can't still be breaking down what came there. And then he talked about with the studio shows how you put 5, 6 people on these studio shows and everybody gets 30 seconds to make a point, and then they're doing a commercial, and then they're back 30 seconds. It was a really good insight that they kind of came in with stuff there. So I highly recommend it if people have time. Give that show a listen. I think it was last Sunday's episode by those guys. It was really kind of I thought a unique like glimpse into things we don't usually hear a lot of people talk about, like how hard all of this stuff is.
It really is, and you have to be in a certain mindset when you're doing that. You have to tailor your commentary towards that specific environment, which is really difficult to do. All right, let's get to this question. United We Stand said NBA expansion, 32 teams, 4 conferences, top 3 advance to the playoffs. 4 versus 5 for play-in, 2 games against other 3 conferences, 48 games for the rest of the games against the conference. 32 teams,
Yeah,
4 conferences.
Cut out games. Like I get it. He's going to like a 72 game model, and that
right.
Sure, but they're not going to cut out games. Like it's just not going to happen. Yeah. Nobody wants it. Like the players don't want less games. The owners clearly don't want less games because nobody wants less money. That's what it comes down to.
And I think everybody would agree 72 games would be better, except for the money. And nobody wants to sacrifice the money in order to make that happen.
I forget who it was. Somebody made a great point. They said something along the idea of everybody keeps it like baseball for a number of years. It was like they should cut down like 150 games or 140 games. And they said, then the guy would say, every time that got brought up to me, I'd say, are you really going to watch more if it's less games? And they're like, well, no, probably not. And he's like, so that's why they'll never do it. And then he's like, so I just kind of, anytime anybody says it, he's like, okay, cool. You're doing an engagement topic, but it's not going to happen. Let's move on to a better talk. They'll never get there. So we'll see.
This question said, Trevor, I saw your video earlier. How do you feel about Hurley bringing his top assistant with him if he takes the Lakers job? I thought it was an interesting thought. I've had a lot of people that have jumped onto that and latched onto that part of the interview. And for me, while I was doing the interview, it didn't strike me as anything all that significant. Luke Murray coming to the Lakers potentially with Dan Hurley. I just kind of assumed, yeah, I mean, of course the Lakers aren't going to come in and say, hey, Dan Hurley, you take the job, but we're picking your assistants. No, he's going to pick all of his assistant coaches. And of course he would bring some from UConn. I always kind of assumed that would be the case, but apparently that is kind of like a bigger news topic than what I expected it to be.
Yeah, I think what you'll see happen is some UConn people will join him. He'll have some NBA folks that are more experienced with the NBA to be there to kind of guide him. And you may even see one or two current Lakers assistants stick around to stay. And that could be a part of that could be, hey, they're already under contract. And part of it could be they can help ease the transition into the pro game. So it'll be a mix. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he brings his top assistant now, unless it turns to, hey, UConn now needs a coach, and we'd like to offer you a whole bunch of money to be UConn's coach. Then maybe he stays there. But it wouldn't surprise me. Somebody asked, did Brad Stevens do the same? He brought some people with him, but he kind of came in and then formed there were a couple lower level assistants that came with him from Butler. Then he picked some NBA guys, including a couple guys who were on Doc Rivers' staff that didn't go with him to the Clippers, stayed with the Celtics, and he kept those guys. And then about two years in, it kind of more rounded into Stevens' staff as other guys moved around into other jobs.
Right. All right, let's go here. Two nice guys for you. So my super chat was missed last front office Friday. I actually remember this one. How would you feel about Najee Marshall for the Lakers? He's got an edge to him like Markieff did. The 2020 Lakers. I do think that's something they need, is a little bit of toughness. I wouldn't hate Najee Marshall at all. I don't know what the asking. But the real hard thing about the Lakers, and this is about a number of teams, the Lakers offseason, is we still don't know. We have no idea how much spending power they're going to have. A lot of it depends on D'Angelo Russell, and they could have a full mid-level exception. They might not even have a taxpayer mid-level exception. We don't know what that's going to look like just yet. So that makes it hard to narrow down who these guys are. But I don't dislike him as a target. The question is, what does it take to get him, and how much money do you actually have to spend?
Yeah, I just wrote about him last week when I wrote about the free agent small forwards for Spot Track. Pat, self pub there. Go check that out. I've got 3 positions worth of free agents up there, and I think we're 22 off-season previews in now. I think we've got 8 left. But with Najee Marshall, the big thing I said is, if you believe in the shooting, he made a big jump as a shooter this past year. If you believe that is real, then no issue with a team offering him the full mid-level, meaning the full non-taxpayer mid-level, like almost 13 million. If you believe that shooting is real. Otherwise, you probably need to keep it a little more in range of like 5 or 6 million and something like that. There, you're not getting them on the minimum though. That's not going to happen. And to your point, that change, whatever the Lakers have available changes who the realistic targets are. Because we could talk about, like, should the Lakers sign Jonas Valanciunas to be their center? Man, maybe if they have the non-taxpayer MLE to offer, sure, we could talk about that. If they don't, no, because they're not going to have a viable way to get him like that. Right. That's where we'll have a better understanding once we have a little bit more of a feeling for what's D'Lo going to do. Do they make a big trade or not? And those kind of things.
Caleb said, how will the NBA handle the amount of back-to-backs with 162 more games per season once they expand?
Yeah, it's only it'd be 82 more games because your teams have to play each other. So even though you're adding 2 teams, you're only adding 82 more games. I don't think it changes anything because those teams would plug into the schedule. So instead of adding 10 games in a night, you'd have 11. What I am more interested in.
And you would have teams that you wouldn't play. Like right now, there's a few teams on the schedule that you only play 3 times and stuff. There will be more situations like that on your schedule.
Yeah, I think they're going to use expansion to rework some stuff holistically.
The map.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They'll rework maybe the conferences a little bit, rework maybe divisions, some of that stuff. I think there's going to be a lot of changes to what we see, kind of to what our other commenter mentioned about like how many games would be played and could they structure it to 4 conferences or however they do it. I think we're going to see some work like that get done. Yeah, I love this graphic. Obviously, adding 2 teams into the West would be huge. Portland's no longer out there all by themselves. If you add Seattle, Las Vegas slots right in there perfectly with those other teams.
Hmm.
You could do a lot of cool things with that. So I think one thing too, what worries me a little bit more is, especially, I like the idea of TNT sticking around as a fourth partner, but if we start to get into a lot of exclusive nights, that's going to create more back to backs, because exclusive nights mean we only want like maybe 2 games per night. Maybe we could go up to like 3 or 4, but we want limited games on the nights we have games, so that that's
Yeah.
where the eyeballs go. And that becomes a challenge. That's part of what the NBA did last time around, was we have to reduce back to backs and 3 and 4 and 4 and 5. And they basically told TNT, hey, the nights of Thursday nights having 2 games and that's it, those are over. We have to put other games there because we have to spread out our schedule a little bit.
Yeah. And that'll be interesting to see them navigate if we do wind up with, as you said, that TNT gets a few games and all of that. I've always been fascinated with how they actually come up with the schedule. I'm sure it's all computerized at this point, but the logistics of trying to create a viable schedule for all of these teams, it's got to
It's
be,
really hard.
I mean, a nightmare to come up with this, especially because it's not just we need to figure out a way to get all these teams to play each other the right number of times. It's this arena is not available this day because there's a concert. And that's going to be the case with every arena in the NBA.
Yep.
You're working around all the other stuff. Those arenas don't just sit empty the nights when there's not an NBA game. So you're working around everything else too. Whew. That's
And
tough.
a lot of teams, like the Celtics, are the second team in their building because the Bruins own the building. So the Bruins get first choice of all the dates, and then the Celtics get second choice. The guy, I know part of what the league as a whole, beyond just the Clippers, is excited about is getting the Clippers out of crypto, because then that allows them to be a lot more flexible with how they can schedule, because the Clippers are the third tenant in that building behind the Lakers and the Kings. So that turns into a mess for them. That's literally why the Clippers play so many Sunday afternoons, is because
Right.
that's the date they can get. So that'll be helpful there.
I wonder if they will still do no Lakers and no. I mean, obviously they can't do Lakers and Clippers games at the same time right now. But next season, will they
Yeah,
still
I kind of
follow
wonder that too.
that rule? Just 2 games at the same time, one city. I don't recall off the top of my head how they handle it in with Brooklyn and the Knicks, but with LA,
Yeah,
I mean, it would be even more
I like
important, I would
that.
think.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I've never really given it a lot of thought with that. But yeah, that's a good call out too. And be about as close, I think. Now, it's both cities is as close, could be 2 hours in traffic if you were driving. Like, obviously, like that could be an
Exactly.
absolute nightmare with that. But yeah, it is funny. Somebody just let me pull it up. Ray says, just saw KC on the map, but St. Louis makes sense. Ray, I'm going to hide your comment just so we can see the map. But yeah, right in the middle there, Kansas City, just smack in the middle of the country with nothing, no team really around them. And that
Yeah.
there, somebody who's been mentioned, St. Louis, which is pretty, not exactly there. It's further east, but has also been mentioned. That puts the fear of God in Celtics fans, because Jason Tatum has pretty openly said, like, if St. Louis ever had a team, he wouldn't mind playing there at some point.
Right.
If that's where it went. But yeah, it's going to be Seattle and Las Vegas, I think, first, and then we open up to a whole bunch of other places.
Yeah.
Somebody keeps mentioning Tampa. It's not going to be Tampa. Orlando will kill that before that'll happen. It's too close.
Yeah.
Way
They'll
too close.
they'll
And
squash
it's not
that one.
big enough. Yeah, it's not big. That's not New York or LA that can support multiple teams. So Billings, Montana.
United we stand. So it's still 82 games, 48 games against the other conference, 34 games in conference. Biggest reason for the changes to reduce travel and back-to-backs.
Yeah, I thought you
Getting
said
4 conference
3
opponents.
against the other, but I don't know. It's okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, you can. I think they're going to look at a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
There'll be all kinds of creative ideas that come out of this with, hey, here's how you could do this. So yeah, I think it is. I think if we do this whole front office show studios, it's gonna Kansas City would be a good spot. It looks pretty open.
My sister lives in Kansas City right now.
Oh, there you
So
go.
there we go.
So
I
we have
I got a place to stay.
Yeah, perfect.
That's it.
She'd love that.
That's it.
Just let her know we're
Yeah.
bringing all of our dogs.
That's right. She's got dogs too, so she'd be fine with it. She actually
Perfect.
it was her birthday yesterday. She is a
Oh,
D-Day B-Day.
there you go.
And
I almost asked you yesterday if you knew the significance of the
oh,
day
of course,
yesterday,
the
and I
D-Day.
knew you
Yeah,
would have as a
absolutely.
history teacher. Yeah, I
Of course.
figured you would have. It's this has got nothing to do with anything we usually talk about here, but so what? That's half the show. Um, I it's crazy to me that we're like that was 80 years ago. Like that generation is just about gone from us
Hmm.
now. That is where like there's so many things that hit me history wise where it is like that's just an event in a book somewhere, and it's like we're almost out of people who lived through that period of like history like that. It's just that's crazy to me because like my uh like grandfather was in both my grandfathers were fought World War II.
Same.
So like I like remember them talking about different things that they did. One of them was stationed in like over in the Pacific on a naval ship after we entered the war. So it's just very like very, and then I think the other one I believe was in North Africa doing stuff. So yeah, it's just yeah, I just it hit me yesterday seeing all the D-Day stuff of like wow, like that generation is almost completely gone from us. So spend time with your people because
For
there's
sure.
stories to be told, and once those stories are gone, thankfully we have so many ways now to capture those stories, which is really cool. Like that's amazing that we're not going to just lose that history.
Yeah, we used to have a guy who he just passed away in the last couple of years, but come and talk to our students every year who was at Pearl Harbor, and
Oh
hearing
wow,
his story was always fascinating. But
yeah,
yeah, it's the greatest generation on their way
yep,
out
yep,
currently.
yeah.
Um,
Different. I remember it really hit me when they talked about how kids. I forget this was several years ago, but it was like this age of children are for them 9/11 is something that happened in a history book. Like they don't have
yep,
actual
yep.
tangible memories of it. And I'm like,
Hmm.
that like was like yesterday. Like, we talk about that a lot in sports where it's like this guy just got drafted and now he's in his 10th year. But sometimes those historical moments also hit where it's like, holy cow, like we're there. So yeah.
My first year teaching was 2006, and so on 9/11, we would just honestly the whole day we would just sit around and we would talk. Just hey, what do you guys remember from the day? What were you
Yeah.
feeling? All that kind of stuff, and we would talk about the importance and the significance of it, and all of that. And by the time I finished teaching in 2020, it was they don't they had no idea. It was just like any other
Yep.
event. It was obviously a little more recent, and their parents would talk to them about it and stuff like that. But to them, it may as well have been Vietnam. It may as well have been Korea, World
Sure.
War II, whatever. The moon landing, it
Yep.
was all in that same category for them, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
interesting. I,
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. All right, let's pick it back up. Let's end on
yeah, yeah,
happier notes
yeah.
for
Let's
the
get
rest
into
of the
a few of these things. So there's obviously plenty of things we can talk about. When we look at the trade market, Keith, every day I'm hearing more and more that there's, teams are looking to move their first round picks. I do wonder. I had somebody asking in the chat earlier if we could see teams maybe try to take advantage of that and move up in the first round. Could we see movement within the draft? Maybe if not completely out of the draft, as we get teams looking to sell off their picks, and if we feel it's more flat. I do think that this environment where maybe there's not a Wemby at the top where the Spurs just hanging up the phone the second you mentioned the number one pick. There's not that. I do wonder if that's going to result in more trades on draft night because teams are a little more willing to move around within, say, the first, maybe even the second round.
Yeah, so two thoughts on that. One of them is something I've been saying for a while. I think you'll see targeted move ups where it's we really like this player. We have the 15th pick. This guy is available at the 12th pick, and we think we really want to get him. Let's move up to 12 to go get him. I think you're going to see moves like that. I also think the end of the first round now ends the day. Everybody goes home for the evening and sits down and kind of relooks at the board. I this came up with like Indiana. So Indiana has I believe it's the 36th pick, the 49th, and the 50th pick. And what Scott, my partner over at Spot Track, asked was, "What is your thought on them maybe trying to trade up?" It's not enough to trade into the first round, obviously, but that could be where this guy didn't get drafted in the first round.
Yeah.
36 and 49 for 32 or whatever. Let's try to move up to get the player here in the second round. I think we might see some stuff like that because it's not just first round ended. We switched commissioners for the deputy commissioner and now go. And it's this race because there's 2 minutes per second round pick and everybody's flying through. You got a little bit more time. And you had that reset time where you could sit down and really let's relook at our board. Where are we at? I think that may introduce some of that kind of stuff in the second round, which will be a lot of fun too.
I think it's interesting because there's, I don't remember the times off the top of my head, but I want to say it's like a 7 or 8 o'clock Eastern time start for the first round, but then it's like 3 o'clock or something for the second round the next day. 4 o'clock. Yeah.
It's so weird. I don't understand the whole
weird.
thing of we're going to turn it into 2 nights, but we're going to start the second one and when half the country's still at work.
Right.
If we do front office, it'll be like front office Thursday with
front office Thursday.
Eat a late lunch.
Front office lunchtime. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, front office second round lunchtime. Here we go. So yeah, I'm not complaining because I'm going to be there to watch. I've said for years, I would love it if the NBA wanted to introduce an afternoon game in the middle of the week like they do in Major League Baseball. I think that would be wonderful. I get why they never will and why they don't want to, but I would be all in favor of it. But that's because I'm watching anyway and I'm free to watch. But yeah, it'll be. I'm not super sure how that's going to work out for them with it being F4, but selfishly, I like it. We'll be done nice and early.
I hope they don't focus in too much on the ratings because the time slotting, just naturally, the second round is going to do significantly worse ratings wise than the first round because, of course, it will. Yes. But then when you factor in the time slot thing, I hope they don't look at it and go, "Oh, this didn't work. The ratings are terrible." Well, yeah, it's because you're starting it at 4 o'clock or whatever. Like that's something where I would assume the NBA, they're smart enough to realize, hey, we're not going to draw stellar ratings on the second round by putting it at this time slot, and they're accepting of that and not take that to mean this has been a negative idea and let's do away with that. Let's go back to the all one night thing. Because I do like the idea of doing 2 day nights, whatever. But those second round ratings are going to be low.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be a little bit. Sorry, this just made me laugh. No, that came out of that was a one time out of nowhere.
It was stuck in our head type thing.
Yeah, because it was stuck in my head for weeks, but no, not gonna happen. Yeah. Go ahead.
I wanted to talk about this because just Ricky mentioned we were talking about the differences between calling a game live and doing a podcast and all that, and how you have to deal with all these different things. He's talking about the hot topic shows, right? The hot take shows where they're blame LeBron or JJ's a bad coaching decision, Hurley's going to be worse, and all that kind of stuff. We have to remember, and this is why it's not really my cup of tea with these things. They're just taking a stance. They're taking a side. Yep. Maybe the person really does believe that. Maybe Stephen A. or whoever really believes that Dan Hurley is a terrible hire or that LeBron James is the worst ever or whatever it is that he say. Maybe they do, but you don't really know because that's the show. It's to take a stand on something, present something that is going to get you to react in one way or another. They want you to either go, that guy is an idiot and I disagree with everything he says, or that guy is totally right and I agree with everything he says. That's what they want out of you. They want a strong reaction in either direction. And that's the point of those shows. And to do it all in a very condensed, concise format. Real quick, you've got a minute. Explain why in throw in as many bombastic terms as you can. That's the medium. That's what it is. And there is an art to it. It's not easy to do. Myself, if I try to do it, I feel kind of goofy doing it. But the people who do it and do it well are pretty good at it. But the bottom line is they get people to watch it. And that's what they're going for.
Yeah, I mean, we did 5 minutes of it on our April Fool's Day show. And I felt like an idiot. Like I mean, it was tough. We were meant to, right? Like we tried to be goofballs with it and just have some fun with it. But it's really hard. I always think back to those shows or versions of that old Howard Stern thing of like, when people listen to the average radio show for 5 minutes or whatever it is, his listeners listen for the people who like him listen for 8 minutes. What about the people who hate him? How long do they listen? 10 minutes, right? And that's part of it. People get very like fired up with that stuff. So yeah, I think it's I do, yeah, I think there's a market for that. It's not us, but it's our whole thing here on this show has been we're gonna try to stay away from that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, people do like it, and I think a lot of reason they like it is because people like to be mad. You know, when in this day and age, people just they like something to,
Sure.
I don't know, maybe they just want to feel. They
Make
just
him make
want to
him
feel.
good and angry.
So yeah, that's it.
It angries up
People
the
fired up.
blood, as Grandpa
Yeah,
Simpson
there it
says.
is. Yelling at clouds.
Let's see. There was one more that I wanted to kind of finish with because I thought it was a positive, and and I know we've wound up way more introspective on this show than I ever intended at the start of it.
Yeah.
But somebody asked, I can't find the comment now. I'm scrolling back through trying to find it, but somebody asked, did you guys ever envision these channels, the shows, becoming as successful as they are right now? Like, what were your expectations going in to doing this, to getting, in your case, Keith, the front office show going? Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I for this show, I didn't know what to expect with YouTube. Uh all of any level of success we've had on YouTube is all you. You were the one who was like, we need to do this. This is how we're gonna do it. And you were the one who was like, we need to do it every day. Like this needs to be like we have to be, if not every day. It was, I think initially we are like, well, we'll do it 3 times a week or something. But you were like, we need to be consistent. We need to be there. And there are days when there's sometimes where it's like, we don't have a lot to talk about, or you just wake up and you're like, I don't really want to do this today. I've got other things I've got to do. And you were always the one who was like, no, we have to get something out, even if it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And invariably, our running joke, just for everybody who knows, we no longer say this should be a short show today, because anytime we say that, we end
It's
up with
cursed.
an hour-long show. So we don't say that to each other anymore. But yeah, I honestly had no idea what to expect. I am blown away every day by how many people watch our videos. And like, I go into YouTube and look, and people know because I'll reply occasionally in the comments. Like, I like to see what people are saying about what we said. It's also people check me that way too. And I think that is, that is helps me too, because sometimes I'll say something and be like, all right, yeah, I get it. I guess I was maybe a little off there or whatever. And those are the kind of things with that. So, and then when I see the number of views, and then like I turn and look at what you guys do on Lakers Nation, and I'm like further blown away because like you guys do great work. And I think a lot of it is a testament to the hard work and effort of this is a daily thing, and we're going to be here every day driving. And the way, your work ethic with that, like that's owed a lot to you, and then how you grind at this to be good. And I've watched how your style has changed, since we've known each other too. And that's huge. Like that's massive. That's where a lot of this success comes from.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it's I listened to something from a few years ago the other day. It was like 5 years ago or something. And I went, "Oh my God, my voice sounds so different." Just without like consciously thinking of it, I've changed the way that I speak and stuff just as this has evolved. But yeah, so front office show, like for front office show for this show, I want I want this to get out to even more people. Like
Oh yeah.
this is a good size show, but I still feel like there's more people that could find this show. And I'm always looking, thinking, okay, how can we get to that next level? And that's why we're encouraging people to, subscribe, tell your friends, all that kind of stuff, because we want people to find the show. And I see some of the shows that get huge views, and I'm like, well, I think Keith and I do a better job breaking that down
Yeah.
than they do. What we need to get, what we need to be pulling in those views. A lot of it though is hard too, because as it talked about, our shelf life with this stuff is it's nothing, it's non-existent. So if I spend 4 hours editing a video and putting in all the clips and effects and all kinds of stuff that I could put into it, not only one thing, I've got other stuff I have to run off to, but maybe it would increase, the watchability of the show, but it takes a while. And so it's a matter of kind of getting around all that, but maybe that would help get it out to the next level. But it's the time factor too. Do you want the show out quickly? Because the shelf life of the content is so short. For Lakers Nation, I remember during COVID, meeting with the powers that be and everything, and saying, look, the general thinking has always been that, hey, we build people up, and then ultimately they wind up going somewhere else. One of our original video guys, Andrew, he works for the Lakers now. He does video stuff with them. Serena ultimately went to, and she's with the Cavs now. We've had, Ron for a little while was working for the Denver Nuggets. We've had Denver Ron now. We've had, even though he's back with us, but we've had a lot of people go on to different things. And I remember making the case like no, like I think if I committed fully to the YouTube side and to the podcast, and I wasn't splitting my time doing it because I was writing and stuff. If I didn't write, if I didn't do this, if I just committed fully to the show, I think I could build something where I don't have to go somewhere else to get my career to the next step. I can make this that level. And I remember making that argument. It is still grown beyond what I expected it to be at that point. What I dreamed it would ultimately become at that point. It's grown beyond that. And I am incredibly fortunate to be able to say that and to have that where it's at, and incredibly appreciative of all the people who have watched. And same thing with this show, that we've got people watching, every day, that we've got people tuning in when we go live, that we've got people asking if we don't have a show up, like, hey, where's your show?
Yeah.
And hanging out with us. It is amazing. It's a blessing, and we are incredibly fortunate. It's because of all of you that are watching and listening that allow us to do this. So again, we are very appreciative of all you guys for being there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the inside jokes in our community here where people know about the Friday yells, like, right. And it's always
right.
fun when somebody new stumbles in who's not prepared for it, and they're like, why are you yelling at me? And then usually the chat's like that. They usually just reply back with Front Office Friday. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I fully recognize that it is weird that it's a Celtics guy and a Lakers guy doing a show together. But to me, that says, like, it's at the end, it's all basketball. Like, that's, we love basketball more than anything else, and that's why we have this success. But yeah, we want to see more people. Like, let's keep it going, and we've made the promise here is we're not going to change the show into being, we're not going to start firing off hot takes and other foolishness. If the show grows, we'll be able to do the show better. Some of my favorite shows are the ones we did together. When we have the handful of times we've had a chance to do the show together, like, it's been great. So yeah, I mean, we have a blast doing it, and it really is, like you said, it's the people who support it. Like, that's huge for us. Like, it's so cool to me that we have this stuff. And thinking about you just saying too, like hearing how you talked at the beginning versus now, it's so funny. My wife and daughter are like, oh, you're doing radio, Dad, right now. Like, it's because they're like, you talk completely different than you talk otherwise. And it's like, there's a little bit of truth to that. Like, it's funny. I try very, very hard to not curse on this show. And Trevor knows, like, I'm from Boston, so my favorite word, adjective, noun, and verb is the F word. And I pepper it into my speech far more than I probably should. I don't do it on here because we try to keep it family friendly. People have asked, like, you guys should do more video clips. We have to be very careful with that stuff because you will get shut down if you're not doing it in the right way. And to be completely honest, getting some of the stuff can be extremely expensive. That's, we're not ESPN. We can't just be like, hey, I need the clips from finals game 1 and load them up and they're ready to go 5 minutes later. Like, it doesn't work that way. So it can be hard to do some of that stuff. But yeah, it's tough. So yeah, it's tricky. So yeah, I'm super happy with it, but I know there's still room to grow and get better and improve and everything. And we're trying. So just hang with us and we'll be there.
That's right. We are
right.
we're working at it.
This note, if that's all right, because I know you got to get off to doing your next thing. If the Celtics win, can you do the Boston accent for one whole show? Nobody wants to hear that, especially not Trevor. It comes out.
It's funny when it comes out every now and then. That's for sure.
It's when people are like, when are you not super excited and animated? But yeah, when I get super fired up, it'll pop out then, and it's always kind of funny when it comes out. Came out on radio the other day with a mutual friend of ours in Memphis area. It came out and he was like, "Whoa!" He's like, "Cool." He's like, "Just because the Celtics are in the finals, you're Mr. Boston again?" And I was like, "Man, I haven't sounded like that on a radio spot in years." Like, it popped out. So yeah, it used to be so thick. We once had a boss at Disney that when my wife and I were dating, we worked in the same department, and my boss couldn't understand some of the things that I said because my accent was so thick. And my wife would translate certain things where the typical dropping
it's
the
the
R.
time in California and Florida that has watered it down a little bit.
100%, yeah. But it's funny if I go home for like a week or two, it comes back out right away on the back end of that. So maybe that's what I'll do. I'll go home for a little bit and then go. We didn't make any kind of bets. The only bet I made is if the Celtics got swept, because there was some people in here telling me it was going to be Mavs in 4, that I would quit covering the NBA, and clearly that's not going to happen. So
That's not going to happen.
good. I was pretty confident it would not be Mavs in 4. So yeah.
Somebody asked if you could do some videos on basketball bulletins, some solo videos as well. I don't know. We haven't talked about it, but I figure I'll drop the link in here. Basketball bulletin. I've got an editor I'm working with that's producing some shorter videos on some things, on some different topics, and so that's been a lot of fun. So you guys can check that out. Check out the channel, and make sure you subscribe. I'll have something else coming out, I think, tomorrow, but. Keith, obviously more than welcome to do anything on there that he wants,
Sure.
But I know you're a little busy right now too.
Yeah, it's just tough at this time of year. I haven't written for the site as much as I want to, just because I've got a lot of stuff going on. I think I've got 8 more off-season previews to write. I've got like a bunch more free agency coverage. I think I have like 20 something articles between now and the start of free agency that I need to get finished, prepped, and written and out there, plus reacting to whatever comes up between now and then. I will say that I'll spring this on you here, but I am going to ask Trevor to teach me how to set this up to go live. So over the summertime, if it's like I'm hanging out and I'm missing basketball and there's nothing else to talk about, I might just go live for like a half hour and answer questions, because I love this. I love doing this. So we can get an extra whole thing out of this by doing that. It's a lot of fun to do this. So Trevor knows I say this all the time. Friday's my favorite show because I like the back and forth. I like asking questions with that. So somebody said I don't miss stir or drive traffic in Boston. I don't. I was a train guy. I took the train in and out of the city when I lived up there before I moved here to Florida. Yeah, city just driving. Only because I don't. Yeah, traffic drives me absolutely crazy. I'm surprising maybe to some, other than being surrounded by Lakers fans. I loved living in Southern California, except for the traffic. Like I couldn't do it. And I was in Anaheim. I wasn't in the LA area. Like, and that was bad enough. I didn't want any part of that, and I couldn't wait to get out of there. So yeah, we've got some plans for some stuff. We're gonna have some fun.
That's right.
But this summer it's gonna be great. So if you're watching for the first time, subscribe and jump in there, and you'll get on board. We'll be live for the draft. We're figuring those plans out. We'll figure that out. Live for free agency each night of the first couple nights of free agency, and then we'll have a whole bunch of other stuff coming. This is the time. Now's the time to get in.
That's right. That's right. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. And I guess we went a little overtime on today's show, but it was a good time chatting with you all. And have a fantastic weekend, everybody. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully we get some big news coming soon. We'll see. We'll see. But thanks again, everybody. Again, make sure you subscribe, turn on those notifications as well. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, see ya and stay safe.